Syria was once a land of bustling cities and quiet villages, where the call to prayer mingled with the laughter of children and the scent of jasmine drifted through open windows. Damascus, one of the world's oldest cities, was a place where ancient stones met modern life, where families gathered for evening tea and neighbors shared stories in the cool shade of courtyards. In Aleppo, the souks were alive with the colors of spices and the music of merchants calling out their wares. In Homs, in Dara, in countless towns and villages, life moved to the steady rhythm of work, school, and family. But in March of 2011, the world began to change. What started as peaceful protests, young people demanding dignity, freedom, and a voice was met with violence. The government's response was swift and brutal. Streets that had echoed with laughter now rang with gunfire. Walls that had sheltered generations were shattered by bombs. The air, once sweet with the promise of spring, filled with smoke and fear. As the months passed, the violence spread. Neighborhoods became battlefields. Friends and neighbors found themselves on opposite sides of a widening divide. The war, which began as a struggle for change, soon drew in outside powers, each with their own interests and ambitions. The land that had once been a crossroads of civilizations became a place of siege and sorrow. For millions of Syrians, the only choice was to flee. The journey began with a single step, a hurried decision, a whispered goodbye, a bag packed in the dark. Families left behind homes, jobs, and memories, carrying only what they could hold. Some walked for days through fields and mountains, dodging snipers and checkpoints. Others crammed into cars or buses, hoping for safe passage. Many traveled at night, guided by the stars in the hope that somewhere there was safety. Among them was a young mother named Amal. She had lived her whole life in Aleppo, in a small apartment filled with books and laughter. Her husband, Samir, was a teacher. Their daughter, Lena, loved to draw pictures of the city's ancient citadel. When the bombs began to fall, Amal tried to keep life normal, reading stories by candlelight, baking bread when she could find flour, singing lullabies to drown out the distant thunder of war. But the day came when the danger was too great. The school was closed, the market empty, the neighbors gone. With a heavy heart, Amal packed a small bag, some clothes, a few family photos, Lena's favorite doll. Samir carried Lena on his shoulders as they joined the stream of people heading north toward the Turkish border. The road was long and uncertain. They slept in abandoned buildings, shared food with strangers, and comforted Lena when she woke crying in the night. At the border, they waited for hours in the hot sun, surrounded by thousands of others, old men and women, babies in arms, children clutching toys and blankets. The guards were stern, but eventually the family was allowed to cross. In Turkey, they found shelter in a crowded camp. The tents were close together, the air thick with dust, and the sounds of children playing. Life was hard, but there was safety. Samir found work, teaching Arabic to other refugees. Amal volunteered in the camp's kitchen, cooking meals for families who had lost everything. Lena made friends, her laughter returning as she played games in the dusty yard. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that bring history's greatest mysteries to life. But the camp was not home. The family dreamed of returning to Aleppo, of rebuilding their lives. As the months turned to years, hope faded. The war showed no sign of ending. The camp grew more crowded. Resources stretched thin. Some families decided to move on, risking the dangerous journey to Europe in search of a future. In the summer of 2015, the world's attention turned to the Mediterranean Sea. Images of overcrowded boats, of desperate families risking everything to cross the water, filled the news. Some made it safely to Greece or Italy, welcomed by volunteers with blankets and warm drinks. Others were not so lucky. The sea claimed many lives, its waves swallowing dreams and leaving only grief behind. One image in particular broke the world's heart. A small boy, Alan Kurdi, lying lifeless on a Turkish beach. His family had fled Kobani, hoping for safety in Europe. Their boat capsized, and Alan, just 3 years old, was lost. The photograph became a symbol of the crisis, a reminder that behind every headline were real people, real families, real hopes and fears. For those who reached Europe, the journey was far from over. Borders closed and opened, governments argued, and refugees found themselves in limbo, waiting in camps, sleeping in train stations, walking for miles along highways. Some were welcomed with open arms. Others faced suspicion and hostility, but everywhere there were moments of kindness, a volunteer offering a sandwich, a stranger sharing a smile, a teacher helping a child learn a new language. Amal and her family were among those who made the journey. They traveled by bus and train, by foot and by hope, through Greece, Macedonia, Serbia, and Hungary. In Germany, they found a new beginning. The government offered them a small apartment, language classes, and a chance to start over. Samir found work in a school. Amal began to study nursing, and Lena started first grade. The city was strange and cold, but it was safe. Slowly, the family built a new life, their memories of Aleppo both a comfort and a sorrow. The Syrian refugee crisis is not just a story of loss. It is a story of resilience, of families who refuse to give up, of children who learn to laugh again. It is a story of communities both in Syria and around the world who open their doors and hearts to strangers in need. It is a story of hope, even in the darkest times. By the year 2024, more than 13 million Syrians had been displaced by the war, over half the country's population. Some found safety in neighboring countries, Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, while others traveled farther, to Europe, North America, and beyond. Many still live in camps, waiting for peace, for a chance to return home. The world's response has been mixed generosity and compassion, but also fear and division. Some countries welcomed refugees, offering shelter and support. Others closed their borders, worried about the challenges of integration. But everywhere, the stories of families like Amal's remind us of our shared humanity. In the years since the war began, Syria has changed. Cities have been rebuilt, but scars remain. Some families have returned, determined to start over. Others remain abroad, their hearts divided between the land they left and the new lives they have built. The crisis is not over, but the spirit of the Syrian people endures. The story of the Syrian refugee crisis is a story of courage, the courage to leave everything behind, to face the unknown, to hope for a better future. It is a story of love, the love of parents for their children, of neighbors for each other, of strangers for those in need. It is a story that belongs to all of us, a reminder that history is not just made by leaders and armies, but by ordinary people who choose hope over fear. So, the next time you see a news story about refugees, remember Amal and her family. Remember the millions who have walked roads of hardship and hope. Remember that behind every number is a name, a face, a dream. Remember that history is not just about the past, but about the choices we make today. If you found this journey into the heart of the Syrian refugee crisis moving, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. There are more stories waiting to be told right here